Welcome back to the Fairy Garden series, a place where courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers, and sometimes it slips on soap. Here in the garden, mistakes happen, big ones, bubbly ones. And what matters most isn't who made the mess, but who is brave enough to help clean it up. Today's tale follows Bella, the fairy messenger. Small in size, quick on her wings, and learning that the bravest deliveries aren't always wrapped in envelopes. This is the story of honesty, teamwork, and one very unexpected mess. This is Bella and the Sparkle Soap Storm. Bella the fairy loved to move fast. She woke with the sun, wings catching the light like flecks of gold, and zipped from one end of the garden to the other with messages tucked under her arm. Being the messenger felt important, almost as important as finishing on time. But Bella's quick feet and curious stops meant she often paused to peek at a new bloom or wave at a ladybug, and the minutes slipped away like dew. She promised herself, today she would be timely. If only she could stay focused. Her satchel, slung across her shoulder, jingled and rustled with every step. Inside were things she meant to sort later. A spool of green thread, 3 tiny spoons for tea emergencies, 2 smooth acorns, and, somehow, a bit of toast with jelly. She fished around for a note addressed to Bree, frowning when it slid from her fingers. The card fluttered like a moth and landed, oh dear, right in Olivia's teacup. Bella squeaked, reached, and watched the ink swirl into cheerful lavender. So much for being organized. By midday, sunlight warmed the rosemary bed, and Bella decided to freshen up. She set a basin by the lavender, dipped her wings, and scrubbed carefully, humming to herself about being neat and ready by 1 o'clock at the gate. She felt proud of this plan: clean wings, tied ribbons, and no distractions. Then her toe nudged the basin, and the whole thing tipped. Soapy water spilled into the path with a soft, unstoppable rush, and Bella stumbled backward into a glimmering puddle. "Oh no," she whispered, watching bubbles gather and swell. Bubbles multiplied, rolling down the rosemary rows like shining marbles. They nudged petals, bounced off stones, and slid together into one big, wobbling globe. It grew as it fed on suds, bigger and rounder until it seemed to have a mind of its own. The garden held its breath. With a syrupy gulp, the bubble slipped over the compost bin and swallowed it whole, leaving only a wobbling, soapy dome where the bin had been. Bella's eyes went wide. This was no ordinary spill. The bubble burst with a soft thump, and suds spread in foamy sheets across the path. Leaves became slippery, soil turned slick, and even the tomato stakes quivered as smaller bubbles lifted red fruit toward the sky. A cluster of tomatoes bobbed upward like ornaments, while a spray of foam drifted toward the gnome patch. Boudreaux, mid-brush near his favorite garden statue, blinked soap from his eyes, tail wagging even as foam crowned his head. The whole garden sounded like a party of fizz and pops. Mela arrived first, steady and kind, taking in the scene with a measured breath. "Bella?" she asked gently. "What happened here?" From behind a blue-tinted puddle, Bella peeked with pink cheeks and damp hair. "I meant to tidy up and shine my bag," she said, lifting the streaming strap. But the soap tipped, and also a unicorn flag I was airing out somehow joined in. Her voice trailed off into a small, hopeful shrug. Mela's mouth softened into a smile that said, "We can fix this." Olivia hurried in with wipes tucked under her arm and a determined look. "Let's make a plan," she said, scanning the sudsy paths. Together, they gathered hoses and dragged them toward the rain barrels. Mella adjusted the spigots. Olivia coiled lines into gentle curves, and Bella tested the flow with her hand, learning how to nudge the water where it needed to go. They traced a new rinse path that would guide the bubbles away from tender roots and toward a sandy patch that could drain safely. A mess, yes, but a manageable one. Help arrived from the smallest corners. The earthworms wriggled together, steady as a rope team, sliding teacups and tiny saucers back to shore. Overhead, bees zigzagged with practiced patience, fanning their wings in neat bursts to lift the foam from leaves and nudge it toward the rinse. Rainier trotted through a bouquet of bubbles and found himself nestled inside a sparkling cluster. He blinked, then giggled, and the tremble of his laughter broke the film with a gentle pop, setting him free and sending everyone into relieved smiles. They worked in a steady rhythm, spray, scoop, swish, trading quick instructions and quick kindness. Bella rinsed the paths where the foam was thickest. Olivia steadied pots and kept tools from slipping. Mella checked the leaves, brushing them clean with a soft cloth so they could breathe again. As they moved together, the task felt lighter, and the garden slowly reclaimed its familiar shapes. Even a big storm of soap could be answered with calm hands and shared effort. At last, the suds thinned. The basil perked up, droplets sparkling on its leaves, and beetles crept out from under a rinse of water, polished and content. The paths darkened back to their usual earthy brown. Bella's shoulders dropped with relief. She looked around at the bright, rinsed beds, the garden somehow cleaner and fresher than before. A small bubble drifted past and landed on her sleeve. When it burst, it left a tiny shimmer like a friendly wink. Bella found herself smiling back. "Apologies first," Bella said quietly, opening her satchel and fishing out crisp notes she'd rewritten by hand. She tucked one into a sprig near Bree's favorite spot, another by the compost, and others for the small places and small friends she might have jostled along the way. Then she folded her wings, retied the satchel so it lay flat and neat, and tested the buckle. Everything felt lighter. Making amends, she realized, helped her stand a little taller. That evening, lavender steam rose in gentle curls from the fairy sink. Bella set out paper and a pen that glimmered with bubble gem ink, then began to write. She told the truth on those pages, that mistakes can feel noisy and large, as if they announce themselves to the whole world, and that it can be scary to be the one who made them. But she also wrote how kindness turns down the volume, and how teamwork gives your hands something good to do while your heart steadies. She signed each letter with a sweeping flourish and a small swirl that reminded her of the day's bubbles. A bubble can burst, she thought, and still leave the place brighter. She tucked the letters into her satchel, ready for morning deliveries. At the window, the garden glowed with a calm, silvery hush. Bella pressed her palm to the glass and felt the ordinary comfort of things made right. Friends thanked, tasks finished, and a lesson she would carry. Night settled along the thyme and over the stepping stones. If you listened closely, you might hear a soft pop, like a memory letting go of its worry. Somewhere, Bella's shadow slipped past a moonlit leaf as she checked the beds one last time. She moved a little slower now, not from tiredness, but from care. the kind that notices what needs noticing and leaves a place better than it found it. Morning would come, and with it, new messages and a steadier way to carry them. Thanks for scrubbing through today's story with us. Be brave, be kind, and never be afraid to clean up a little mess, especially if it sparkles. We'll see you again in the Fairy Garden series.